What's up? Thanks for taking the time to check this out. I recently read this book called Indistractable by Nir Eyal. I was actually fortunate to get a pre-release version of it, and it just blew my mind. I had no idea what distraction was, how I was motivated to get distracted, and even just the different ways that I could control for distraction. And what Nir does is he has a 4-part model that helps you get through this whole loop of how distraction ends up manifesting in your life and basically taking control of your life again. It's a super eye-opening book. And I really liked it because Nir uses a lot of examples about his personal life. You know, in researching this book, there were a bunch of experiments that he ran just to see if these concepts were real. So he was able to share those, and I found them really valuable because it just provided a relatable example that helped bring all these concepts to life. So I highly encourage you to read the book. I'm going to go through, just skimming the highlights of it right here. It's not going to be sufficient, but it's enough for you to be interested in giving it a try. When you think about Indistractable, the first thing you have to think about is distraction. And what is distraction? And as Nir talks about in the book, in order to understand distraction, you have to understand traction. So traction are all the things that you want to be doing, how you prioritize your time, what you prefer to do. And then once you've identified that, then you know what distraction is and what is distracting you, because it's pulling you away from what you'd want to be doing. That is the nature of a distraction. So once you have that fundamental kind of concept down, you can move on to understanding, all right, how can I pick these out in my life and start correcting for it a little bit? And that's where the 4-part model comes in. And first, thinking about the model, and you can see that action is in the middle of this. This is the same visual as before. And what happens is you take an action, it either brings you toward what you want, which is traction, or away from what you want, which is distraction. So this is still the same concept as the previous page. But now we have 2 different parts. We have internal triggers and external triggers. And basically a trigger prompts you to take action. So that's why these arrows are pointing toward action. And then whatever action you take ends up either being what you want to do or what you didn't want to do. So that's how these 4 parts comprehensively come together. And the first thing, mastering internal triggers. So this is just a misconception I think a lot of people have about their own behavior and human psychology. A lot of times we're motivated, or we think that we're motivated to seek pleasure, but in reality we are all motivated to avoid discomfort. And once you can call out why you're doing something, and that being the core of it, the reason why you're behaving in a certain way, you have a better understanding of what that behavior means, and you just can come to terms with it to be like, oh, is this something I want to be doing, or is this something I don't want to be doing? So that's why it's the first part of the model. It's kind of the strategy behind like, okay, let me have an understanding of where this all comes from in the beginning. It's the motivational piece. Then you move on to making time for traction. And a great way that he articulates this is, if you look at someone's schedule, you should know what's important to them because they've already allocated time to doing it. So your priorities should be very transparent in the way that you spend your time. And that's what making time for traction is all about. And a great example that he uses is a problem that he experienced. He had insomnia and he was ruminating in his mind too much at night. And what he realized is like, all right, I'm gonna make time for traction. I'm gonna allocate this time as my bedtime. And all I can do is control how I spend my time. Whatever happens after that, I can't control. But by making time for traction, he was able to take the pressure off of the behavior, and then he was able to fall asleep, and his action ended up responding where he was able to achieve traction. So that was a great example that he used. That was a personal anecdote. Then we move on to the next part, which is hacking back external triggers. And this is exactly what you think of when anyone says distraction. It's the pings, dings, rings, the clutter, the noise, anything that distracts you, that takes you and your attention away from what you were doing and pushes it towards something else. That's what distraction is, remember? So this part of the book is extremely tactical. It's all about how to declutter your workspace and to control your desktop and to rearrange your apps and to control a social media feed. So, just like all the notification kind of reminders, stuff like that. Like there are a bunch of different tactics, but understanding that those things are going to distract you, you can now design your life and design your settings or kind of the inputs you experience around that issue so that you don't end up having them take you into making the decision to either go to traction or distraction in the first place. You can just avoid that whole trigger altogether, is that kind of part of the book, hacking back external triggers. And then the last part is preventing distraction with pacts. And basically pacts are all about pre-commitments. So when you're in just a neutral, unemotional state, you can identify traction, how you want to be spending your time. But sometimes we end up finding ourselves in that distraction place because we get emotional, we make impulse decisions, things happen, we end up getting distracted. But there are certain things that we can do if there are, certain behaviors that we know are going to distract us. There are certain things we can do to reduce the incidence of those behaviors, and that is to make pacts around those behaviors. And pacts are basically consequences, or kind of adding some kind of displeasure, or just like really calling out like, no, this isn't how I want to spend my time. And one of the examples of a pact that he talks about in the book that I actually have incorporated since in my life is something called an effort pact. And what I did was I realized I was using Instagram too much. It was taking me away from what I wanted to be doing with my life. So what I did was I moved the icon for Instagram in different places on my phone instead of the normal little category box that I had it in. And my habit was just a boom, 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 click into it and click Instagram. But since I click, and then it's not there anymore, it just added a little bit more effort of me searching for it within my phone, because I'm like, oh man, it's not where I expect it to be. And just having that moment of mindfulness to find the icon was enough to remind me, oh, this is a distraction. I actually don't want to open Instagram. So it took back that habit that I had and allowed me to refocus my attention to where I wanted to put it, which was traction and some other activity. So that's the 4-part model in the book Indistractable. Master internal triggers, make time for traction, hack back external triggers, and prevent distractions with pacts. I really enjoyed the book. Again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. You really need to dive into it on your own. I highly encourage you to. And I think that it's just going to add so much value to your life, not only in identifying when distractions occur, but also understanding what distraction is so you can make sure it doesn't come up in your life as often. Appreciate you watching this video. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you too can live an indistractable life. Thanks.